Hello and welcome to this video on the famous Ma Danyang Heavenly Star acupoints. These points are invaluable for acupuncturists and should be considered when forming your next prescription of points. This video is for students and practitioners of TCM and others that may be interested in our treatment modalities. I'm James O'Sullivan and I've been studying and practicing TCM for over 30 years. I'm a visiting lecturer in many universities throughout China. I'm passionate about TCM because I've witnessed the benefit in my own clinic and on my yearly trips to gain clinical experience in university-affiliated hospitals throughout China and Taiwan, particularly Beijing, Shanghai, Hangzhou. Let's get on with the lecture. Ma Danyang, or originally named Ma Yu, he was a famous Daoist. He was born around 1123 AD to a very wealthy family in Hainan in Shandong province. And as a young man, he was renowned for his skills as an acupuncturist and his talents in poetry. In fact, he is well known today for this poem about 11 miraculous acupuncture points, which are the subject of this lecture. He was married to Sun Bu-er, a famous practitioner in her own right. Soon after marrying, he and Sun Bu-er followed the Daoist Weizhong. Wang was one of the leading Daoists of China, and he wrote several important books, including the Master Weizhong's Instructions on the Golden Gate and Jade Lock, which described, among other things, visualizations of the world within the body as part of a meditation practice in cultivating Qi. He was famous for a secret method of healing and meditation called complete perfection, which is the basis of one of the major sects of Taoism today. But more about this later. Ma and his wife built a Daoist retreat for Wang. They gave up their extensive family property holdings and became Daoist monks, living a simple and peaceful life. Eventually they separated in order to pursue their celibate meditation activities in solitude. Before his death, Wang conferred on Ma the secret method of complete perfection. Ma practiced this and became known as one of the perfect ones who embraces oneness. I love the way Chinese used to speak in ancient times, especially about competent practitioners. He was thus acknowledged as one of the 7 perfect ones of the North. As was his wife, he had written 2 books, Yanglingquan and Dangxuan Jinyu Qi. The name that he took, Danyang, translates as Cinnabar Yang, meaning Yang elixir. Ma Danyang had written an ode to the 11 miraculous acupuncture points, or otherwise known as the 11 heavenly star points, which was published within the text of the Jade Dragon Manual in 1329. A century later, Xufeng, who was known to introduce the 8 extraordinary meridians, added a 12th point and gave the ode the new name, The Song of the 12 Points, shining bright as the starry sky and able to heal all the many diseases. This song, or ode, was translated to English and published as an appendix in The Golden Needle and Other Odes of Traditional Acupuncture by Richard Bertschinger in 1991. The original name of the 11-point song by Ma Danyang is instructive. Song of the 11 Points Responding to the Stars of the Sky. It is likely that Ma was thinking not only of the wondrous nature of the points, later described as shining bright as the starry sky, but also about the influence of the stars on the points. as part of the Daoist interpretation of acupuncture. More about this in a future video, perhaps. The ode is structured very simply. Each verse is comprised of phrases of 5 characters. Also, except for the introduction, all verses describing each of the acupuncture points are comprised of 8, 10 or 12 of these 5 character phrases. Now let's take a look at the ode itself. Here is the translated text of the entire song. Song of the 12 points, shining bright as the starry sky and able to heal all the many diseases. The ode goes, put out your hand to Susanli, Neiting, Quchi and Hegu. Pair Weizhong with Chengshan and Taichong with Kunlun. Huantiao accompanies Yanglingquan, Tongli along Lieque. With support, use the rule of support. With severance, use the rule of severance. All 360 holes do not escape these 12 strange charms. Healing a disease is like magic, a torrent whirling as wind-driven snow. The northern dipper sends down its true workings. The golden lock teaches us to snap it open. One truly clever can pass it on. The unfaithful have only restless talk. I sincerely hope that you don't hear restless talk during this video. Moving on to our ancient wisdom, and I'm not going to try and explain the meaning of this ode, as we would not have enough time to explore its true meaning. What I love about ancient wisdom is its simplicity, in that words alone can never portray a lesson or a teaching. It requires thought and action and more action. It brings to mind a story of a teacher and a question from one of his most intelligent students, where the student asked for the simplest explanation of Taoism. The teacher answered with only 4 words: everything changes. Next question. So in applying these 12 miraculous acupoints, it is my strongest suggestion to please consider further thought about this ode, song, and its meaning. Now let's move on to the Ma Danyang heavenly star points and discuss them individually. The first point up is Susanli. We've come across this lots of times in our clinics and in our classroom. Susanli under the eye of the knee, 3 inches in between the 2 tendons. We know that it's Taichong below Dubi, stomach 35, and it's 1 finger breadth from the anterior crest of the tibia. One can reach into the center of a swollen belly, meaning that one can treat swelling in the abdomen region with this point. It is splendid at healing a cold stomach, intestinal noises, and diarrhea. It is used to treat a swollen leg, sore knee or calf, an injury from the cold, weakness or emaciation or parasitic infestation of all sorts. What I love about Susanli or stomach 36 is this last line is, when your age is past 30, needling and moxa applied to this point changes your thinking. A tremendous anti-aging point. To find it, look extremely carefully. 3 cones of moxa, 8 fen in, and peace. The 8 fen, of course, is talking about the depth of the acupuncture needle. The images in these slides come from the images that I use to make my posters, which are available to purchase from MagCloud. The link is provided below, especially my poster on Ma Danyang Heavenly Star Points. Let's move on to Neiting. Neiting outside the second toe. This point belongs to foot Yangming. This is proximal to the web margin between the second and third toes in the depression distal and lateral to the second metatarsal digital joint. It can heal a deadly chill in the hands and feet and is good for the hatred of voices. I haven't changed those particular words, but what it means is a preference for silence with a dislike of people talking, particularly in depressive type disorders. It also treats skin rashes and sore throat, continuous yawning and toothache, as well as intermittent fever without appetite. A needle here means true awakening. That's Neiting. Let's move on to Quchi. To find crooked pound, fold the hand to the chest, bend the elbow and seek the corner of the bone. When we look at our textbooks, we find that when the elbow is flexed, it's in the depression at the lateral end of the transverse cubital crease, midway between lung 5 and the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. Quchi is splendid at healing an aching elbow or an arm attacked so that the hand cannot close. When drawing back, a bow is impossible, or the muscles so loose you cannot comb your head. It's also used if the throat closes up suddenly and it seems fatal, when fevers are repeated and persistent, or of severe lesions over the whole body. Immediately needling this point will improve. Our next point, Hegu. The joining valleys lie at the tiger's mouth between two bones where thumb and finger fork, or midway between the junction of the first and second metacarpal bones and the margin of the web. This is an excellent point to treat a headache with a swollen face, malarial fevers, burning, then cold, tooth decay and associated pain, or a nosebleed, locked jaw with inability to speak. The needle enters 5 fen deep and the patient is immediately at peace. This point is one of the points that are forbidden during pregnancy because of its strong action in labour. Weizhong is our next point. In the crook of the knee is on the horizontal crease or within the pulse. Weizhong in the crook of the knee is on the horizontal crease within the pulse, midpoint of the transverse crease of the popliteal fossa between the tendons of biceps femoris and semitendinosus. It's prescribed for lumbago when you cannot straighten up, especially when severe and radiating up the back. Activate this point for aching muscles which cannot extend, rheumatism which returns irregularly, and a knee that is difficult to extend or bend. The needle goes in and immediately there is rest. Chengshan, or Bladder 57, receiving the mountain, named fish's belly, between the flesh where the bulk of the calf divides. This is inferior to the belly of the gastrocnemius muscle, midway between bladder 40 and the upper border of the calcaneum. Is splendid at healing a severe back pain, hemorrhoids, or difficulties in the bowel. For example, the song To Keep Up Your Sleeve says, for the 5 types of hemorrhoids due to hot blood, select Bladder 57 and await disappearance of the disease without trace. A powerful point for this condition. It's also prescribed for swollen ankles and swollen knees. Repeated or continuous tremors or aches, sudden cramps and spasms. A needle into this point brings peace. Next we have liver 3, Taichong, on the big toe and 2 inches behind the joint, and we find it on the dorsum of the foot in the depression distal to the junction of the first and second metatarsal bones. By its pulse you know there is life. It can cure sudden fits and convulsions. The throat and breast swollen, both feet unable to walk, all types of hernias, one-sided, bulging, drooping. A cloudy mist in front of the eyes, and as well aching in the waist. Lowering the needle brings a magical result. Liver 3 is considered the most important point in the liver meridian, so important that, as mentioned previously, the Ming Dynasty physician Xu Feng added it to Ma Danyang's 11 heavenly star points, now known as Ma Danyang 12 heavenly star points. Bladder 60, Kunlun, on the ankle, outside the foot, found on the upper edge of the heel bone, found in the depression midway between the tendocalcaneus and the lateral malleolus. Prescribed for spasms and pain in the tailbone, difficulty in breathing, fullness of the chest, when unable to walk or even step out, or you move just once and immediately groan. If you want to seek relief, then at once needle this hole. Bladder 60 is also one of these forbidden points during pregnancy, again because of its strong nature. Huantiao, the jumping circle, lies at the hip joint. This is found lying on the side with one leg bent. At the junction of the lateral third and the medial 2/3 of the distance between the greater trochanter and the hiatus of the sacrum, a lower back that feels like it's broken is when we would use this point. Rheumatism aggravated by cold or damp. Pain running down from thigh to calf, so to turn on the side brings a heavy sigh. Ma Danyang tells us that some needles or moxa on this point will in short result in the illness vanishing. Yanglingquan, Gallbladder 34, lies beneath the knee on the outer calf, 1 inch in. It's found in the depression anterior and inferior to the small head of the fibula, 2 cun inferior to the knee. It's prescribed for a swollen knee accompanied by numbness, rheumatic pains due to cold, one-sided, when unable even to raise the foot, sitting or lying as someone old and weak. A needle of 6 fen, and it halts. Something magical, mysterious, and peerless. Tongli is behind on the side of the wrist, 1 inch in from the wrist, on the ulnar side of the forearm, proximal to the wrist, between the tendons of flexor carpi ulnaris muscle and flexor digitorum. It's 1 cun superior to heart 7. The point is used for stammering and stutters, distress, irritation or palpitations. With strong symptoms, the limbs go heavy and the head, face and cheeks turn red. With weak symptoms, there is lack of appetite. They stay quiet without expression. A fine needle, gently in, and believe me, a truly magical result. Lieque is above, alongside the wrist. The first finger rests there as the hands are crossed. This is found at the origin of the stylite process of the radius, 1.5 cun above the wrist crease. It is splendid at healing migraine or the whole body lifeless with wandering pains, when phlegm incessantly blocks above, or in lockjaw when you cannot force open the teeth. Understand how to tonify and disperse, and they respond as if grasped by the hand. This indicates a powerful yet supporting the chi sensation when correctly manipulated. I haven't changed any of the descriptions of Ma Danyang, so what you see here is exactly as it's transcribed in the ancient texts. If you would like to support future videos, please have a look at my posters and perhaps consider purchasing 1 or 2. They're not expensive, and at 12 inches by 8 inches, they're perfect size for most clinics today. They're very detailed and excellent for students, practitioners or the clinic. I want to thank you for watching. Hope you find it useful, and I'd like to wish you well in your study and in your practice. Until the next video, sláinte.